So it's no secret that I love card games, and even though I love Legends, I do find myself playing other card games from time to time as well. As you know, I recently did like a quick review of the card game Eternal, which is another card game by Direwolf Digital, and today I'm going to do a quick review of Gwent. So Gwent is currently in closed beta, and if you've played The Witcher 3, you're probably familiar with it. If you have not played The Witcher 3, then this might be entirely new or foreign to you, but so far I'm really enjoying it. It's been kind of a breath of fresh air. The RNG mechanics in it are few and far between beyond just like the initial card order or order of draw, if you will. I'm not saying that it's entirely absent from the game. There are a few random effects, but they are just not in abundance. Every game I've played anyways, I feel like I'm very much in control of what happens. It's very rare that I'm thinking to myself like, okay, if this effect has, one outcome I win the game, one outcome I lose the game. It's just not something that just comes up, right? So anyway, you'll kind of see what I mean, and we're gonna do a quick walkthrough of the menus, the cards, and we're gonna do a quick how to play the game, probably a game against AI, and you can see for yourself. So without further ado, let's take a look. So this is the main menu for Gwent, or at least the current main menu for this build. As I said before, this is a closed beta, so things are subject to change, but on the main menu there's this multiplayer option. As of right now, there are no like quote-unquote single-player options beyond just practice in the tutorial, but I do find it interesting that they specifically say multiplayer, because that leads me to believe they may add single-player stuff in the future. Your options right now are just casual matches. They don't have ranked play turned on, but this is how you match up against other people in the closed beta. You have the friend match, where you can directly play against somebody on your friends list. Practice, which is versus the AI, and then you can choose to replay the tutorial. The first time you load up the game, you'll play through the tutorial, which kind of gives you the basics on how to play the game, and we'll cover the basics in a little bit, but that's essentially what you play the first time you launch. Now, beyond this, there's also the cards menu. So here we can view what's in our collection, and we can go in and try building decks. There's also the shop. The shop is where you can either purchase existing packs, or in this case they're called kegs, or you can open kegs as well if you already have them in your inventory. You can purchase kegs for real-world money, or you can use it, purchase using in-game resources. So up here in the top right corner, you'll see some numbers. This right here represents ore. Think of ore as like your primary currency. Right now I have 50 ore. It takes 100 ore to purchase a keg. Then this right here is scraps. Scraps are what you use for crafting in this game, and we'll show you that in a little bit. And then finally this is kegs, or a number of packs that we have available. And then the last spot is just your options, and this is exactly what you think it is. You can set your in-game options for volume and resolution and all that jazz. As you can tell, I've got the music going right now because, quite frankly, I love the Witcher music. I loved the musical score in The Witcher 3. I'm a big fan of the musical score for this game, so I actually play with it on. So if we come into the cards real quick, I'll hop into my collection. The game currently has neutral cards, and then there are currently 4 factions as well. There is a 5th faction that is coming. When you build a deck, you build a deck out of a faction. So there's the Monsters, Northern Realms, Scoia'tael, and Skellige as of right now. Each of the factions has like a faction-wide special ability. For example, at the end of a round, Monsters get to keep 1 random monster on the board. The decks that you build are typically going to be themed or trying to take advantage of whatever your faction ability is, but it's not always the case, but typically, just because the cards, as you would imagine, that are a part of that faction also play up to whatever your faction ability is. Now, when you build a deck, you also pick a leader. So you have your faction-wide ability, but you also have your leader, which gives you a special ability once per game. You get 1 default leader per faction, but there are other ones that you can unlock. As you can see, this one is lit up, so I have him unlocked. These ones are grayed out, so I can choose to acquire them again via kegs or through crafting. So we click here, we can see that I could craft it if I had the appropriate number of scraps, which I do not. And also if I had him but I wanted to get rid of him, I could mill him and get 50 scraps. So that's essentially how the crafting works. It works exactly the way you would expect it to. It's very similar to other games. One cool thing I want to show off while we are in here, though, is that the premium art for this game is not just, you know, the card, but kind of like slightly gift up, if you will. The premium art in this game is actually pretty gorgeous. So I'm going to go ahead and scroll down to Geralt. This is something that you get as part of the closed beta. And when I mouse over him, over to the right, you can see that he isn't just a gift, but he's like a full-on like mini story. So he is a gift, but he's taken some heads, right? Like if I click on him and it does it again, but also with some sound. That's pretty fantastic. Now, there are additional cards with premium art coming that we've seen in some preview streams from the developers. Not every card has a premium version right now, but eventually that is the case. You'll also notice that he has like a gold border. Some of these cards have a silver border, and then some of these have like a bronze border. This isn't necessarily rarity, but this is actually referencing the type of card, and we'll cover that in a second. Rarity is actually reflected by this icon here down below. So this is like this game's version of a legend, if you will, right? This one is one of the like very rare cards, whereas, you know, and then we have epics and so on and so forth. So there is some rarity. This is just a normal rare, being blue. If it's just gray, this is your common, and so those represent your rarity and not necessarily the border. So we're actually going to hop over to the deck builder here, and we'll open Skellige. This is the deck I'm currently trying to finish building, though I still have some filler cards because I have not got all of the cards to get like the completed version. But when you build a deck in this game, you have a minimum of 25 cards and a maximum of 40. And here you'll see bronze, silver, and gold, and so this is what I was referring to in terms of like type of card and power level. You can only have up to 4 gold cards in your deck at any given time, and up to 6 silver. So it kind of limits your deck building, if you will. Another thing to note is that the gold cards are often higher in power level, hence the limit. They very frequently allow you to ignore certain things. So for example, if we look at Manticore Venom here, it says remove 4 strength from all instances of a non-gold unit on its side. So gold cards typically allow you to avoid or ignore certain abilities, but that also means that things that are beneficial, so like Commander's Horn, doubles the strength of all non-gold units. So this is also a buff. So gold cards are, for the most part, like non-interactable. I say for the most part because there are some effects that do let you still target gold cards, interact with them. In fact, there are some effects that even let you turn gold cards into silver, or other cards into gold cards, for example. So there's an entire strategy in the game kind of revolving around the quality of a card beyond just the stats. Now, other things to note, you'll notice that there are like numbers on each of them. These represent the power level or the strength of each card. You'll also notice that there's like 3 rows here, and then this 4th row as far as the deck builder goes. These 3 rows correspond with 3 rows that exist in the game, and we'll show you that in a minute. But the game board is split into rows, and your cards do things based on rows or interact with rows. So, for example, if we come and we look at Swipe, this says remove 3 strength from all non-gold units in a row. So if my opponent has a bunch of stuff in, say, the melee row, Swipe will hit all of them, or at least all the non-gold ones. So the rows matter in terms of like positioning. There's also things that are like weather effects that affect certain rows. There are cards that allow you to move creatures or minions to and from certain rows, and so on and so forth. So the rows kind of dictate position and thus some of the strategy in the game. Down here, these represent special cards. These are things that typically take like a one-time action, and that's why they are not placed up here in the deck builder. Mostly so that you can kind of get like a bird's eye view of your deck to see like what goes where, what does what. As you imagine, each of the cards also have their own special abilities, right? So this one, for example, is immune to fog, and when I play him, I discard all copies of him from my deck into my graveyard or discard pile, right? I'm going to say graveyard because I'm an old Magic the Gathering player, so I apologize if that's not the term, but discard pile. Meanwhile, this resurrects units, so that takes them from the discard pile to play, and so on and so forth. So this is kind of deck building in a nutshell. What you're trying to accomplish with deck building will obviously make more sense as we do a quick playthrough of the game. And we're going to hop into that in just a second. The last thing I want to show off before we jump into a game, though, and go over like the basics, is how they handle packs in this game, or as I said, they're called kegs. I want to show it because it's pretty cool. So packs in this game, you open 4 cards that are typically of common quality, though I have had it where you can get like rares and so forth in your common slots. But after you get those 4 cards, you're presented with your 5th card, which is your like guaranteed rare or higher. But instead of just giving it to you, you're actually presented with a choice. You get shown 3 cards and you get to pick it. And I actually love this as an option, because it means that you're less likely to get duplicates as you're filling out your collection. It gives you at least some level of control over what you pick. And I kind of adore it. So our buddy here opens a keg. Actually, he shatters a keg, right? So we get our 4 cards again. Nice. We get to reveal them. So in this case, they were all commons, but as I said before, I've actually gotten rares here. So we get these 4, and then we hit continue, and so now this would be like our rare slot, and now we get to pick between these 3, and it tells you how many you've owned, which is kind of cool, so that a guy, you know, I can, for example, say like, okay, I don't have any of this, I don't have any of this, so I might want to take these to fill it out, or maybe I'm trying to work towards 3 of this for a deck, so even though I own one, maybe it doesn't matter, I would pick this anyway. Again, that's kind of the beauty of this format, right? It's really, really nice for helping a new player fill out their collection. In this case, we're going to pick the Epidemic, because I don't own any, and I know it's used for a couple of the monster deck archetypes. But just a big fan of how they presented this in terms of acquiring your collection for the new player. The one caveat I will say, at least as of right now, and I don't know if they intend to change it, but right now in the closed beta, there are some times where you will be shown a card and it might say owned 0, but you do own copies of it. That's because this game has alternate art versions of cards, and it's typically showing you whatever version of art you have. And I'll actually go back to the collection real quick and show you what I'm talking about. So, sadly, that's the only keg that we have right now available. Again, here you can see you can purchase with real world money and or iron ore. So if we go back to our collection and I hop over to the monsters portion, you're gonna see here, right, we have Wild Hunt Rider, and I currently own 3 of them, and I own 3 of this version with this art. But I also own 0 of these 2, and this is the exact same card, but just different art. Now it's kind of cool because if you want to, you know, fill out your collection and be spiffy, you can have 1 of each, right? Because as you can see, like if you were to put the 3 cards together in terms of art, they would paint like a full picture, and that's, you know, fun and cheeky. I'm a sucker for alternate art. I always was in Magic. I am in, you know, Legends and all sorts of stuff. But if I were to have opened, say, this guy, right, as a new player, it would say I owned 0 of these, which might be throwing me off from, say, picking up, you know, more. I might accidentally say like, oh, I owned 0 of these. Man, I thought I owned some, but I'm going to grab it because I know it's played. And then suddenly I've got, you know, more than 3, even though I didn't necessarily need it for playing. Like, I need it for my collection, but it wouldn't have completed a playset. So just kind of keep an eye out for the alternate art versions of cards. Other than that, I think it's a fantastic system in terms of opening the packs. It's very new player friendly. As we hop into a game now, I do also want to say One of the drawbacks, again, so far in closed beta, unfortunately, is that the game is kind of not new player friendly because it puts the emphasis on acquiring new cards on winning. So as of right now, when you play against another player, each day you get like a daily quest reset where you have to win 3 matches and then you get basically a free pack. You get 100 ore. And then when that happens, you also go up in level. So as you can see, I'm level 16. That's in part from doing dailies and then in part from just playing beyond dailies. But you get rewards every time you win, and if it's not your big level up reward, you usually get like a small amount of ore, a new card, a small amount of scraps, and then every time you level up, you get enough for like a pack or at least a big chunk of ore. So that's kind of what this character progression is, but it's all tied to winning. The only way you earn resources when you lose is when you play a game against a live opponent. At the end of the game, each player can choose to send a good game, if you will, right? They can say GG to your opponent, and that awards them a small number of scraps or ore. So if you lose, your opponent can be like, hey man, good game, and kind of throw you a bone. I like that as like a community thing, right? Like, hey, you send a GG, you earn your reward, and you know, everybody kind of progresses together. But on the other hand, if you're a new player and you're constantly being paired up, and as of right now it appears that's the case, like the matchmaking is entirely random, it's not like I'm paired against other level 16s. Sometimes I just get paired up to people who have vastly more complete collections than I, and I get steamrolled. So when you're a new player, and if that keeps happening and you're constantly being paired up, and you, let's face it, like if you run into some people who are being a dick and they're not throwing you the GG, it can take an awfully long time to get your collection into, you know, a reasonable spot. Now, the good news is once you get at least one deck mostly done or close to being finished, it gets a lot easier to get those wins. But I will say, to me, as of right now, that's like the biggest drawback to the new player, is you got to get over that hump in the early game. The packs part is great. That's very beneficial. I love being able to pick my rares, but getting over that hump and, you know, only getting scraps from the GGs is kind of rough. I'll be honest, like my first couple days playing, I was pretty discouraged. I'm glad I stuck it out because I'm really enjoying the game now, but I do want to like say, hey, if you're struggling at the beginning, that's normal. Hopefully, because this is closed beta, it will get better. They'll fix the matchmaking and let new players play against new players. I imagine it's probably just a small player pool right now is a lot of the issue, but I do want to mention it. So now that I'm done ranting, we're going to hop into a game against AI so that I can go over the basics.
You shall die, worm.
Okay, so
You've got the heart
this
of an uncrate.
is my opponent. He's playing a monster deck, and that was his leader. And then I'm playing a Skellige deck, and it shows my leader. And then you get thrown into essentially the mulligan or the redraw phase. There are 10 cards that each player starts with. Now, I'm scrolling through, and we get to pick to redraw 3 of them. So this guy's really good, this guy's really good. With these, I only ever want 1 in my opening hand. So we're going to choose this to redraw. And you'll notice the redraws happen like right away, 1 at a time. And then we're going to kind of keep going through. Now these are my filler cards. These are the ones that I'm running because I just don't have the better stuff in my deck right now. So we're going to go ahead and send that back. Hey, we got Geralt. Got all of our gold cards so far, so that's good. And then lastly, we're going to ship him back. And we got him. Okay, so now it starts with me. Whoever goes first is usually decided by a coin flip. You'll notice a couple of different things about the board right away. So my opponent has cards, I have cards. Right over here we see 11 and 11. This represents the number of resources, if you will, or cards, because the leaders kind of count as a card, that each player has available. You start with 10 cards in hand for round 1. After round 1 completes, each player will draw 2 more cards, and after round 2 completes, each player will draw 1 more card, and then that is it. So unless you have other effects, say like Ermion here, you don't draw more cards. Like, that's it. There's also no costs to playing your cards. So if you're used to Hearthstone or Legends or Eternal or Magic, there's no mana, there's no magicka. You pick a card and you play it. And that is really important because it means that the emphasis is on your cards as a resource, and getting card advantage is clutch. Now, how you win is you have to win 2 out of 3 rounds to take the match, and you win by having more points or a higher total score than your opponent, right? So I'm going first, and I'm going to pick a card. We're going to start with him and play it. So we play him because he discards. So if we go to the graveyard, it is called graveyard. So if you go to the graveyard, you can see that these are now here. So he thins my deck out from drawing other things. And then my opponent played a card, so he played this gold card, which spawns a fog, spawns some wolves. Thankfully, he is immune to fog, because if he was not, he would be a 1 strength or a 1 power. That's what happens when a weather effect is played. Anything that's in those rows, and it always spawns the weather effect on both rows on both sides, it essentially sets their values to 1. However, he's immune to fog and he's immune to fog, so they're ignoring it. But weather effects are a big part of typically what the monster deck does, so we can expect to see some more. And now it's back to our turn. Normally there's like a timer here, but because we're against AI, it's not going. That's why I picked AI, so we could talk. You'll also notice that he's now winning. He's up 10-6. So, we are going to take some more actions. Now, what we really want is to
I will prove my
draw
worth.
a card and then discard a card. And we're going to discard this guy. The reason why is because he resurrects when discarded.
That's it.
So instead of going to our discard pile, he just pops right onto the
Your
board,
powers of deduction seem to remain not one bit.
which is good for us. So he answered with Regis, and so when Regis dies, then he will spawn a vampire. Now, it says when he's removed from the battlefield, and it's important to note that every time a round ends, right, everything on the board goes to the discard, and then you start a fresh board. So, basically, when this round is over, this guy will die, and he'll get another guy. And that's a way of the opponent generating card advantage. Similarly, the monster special ability means he keeps a random non-gold unit. So as of right now, if say the round ended, he would get to keep one of these. So that's a lot of what monsters do. They generate advantage by weather, and they generate advantage by like keeping things on the board. The deck that we're playing generates advantage from resurrecting things. We actually get stronger as the game goes. That's what our faction ability does. The base strength of each of our units will go up by 1 as the rounds progress. So we're actually trying to set up resurrecting and doing well later. We're going to play Ermion, because he also lets us draw and discard cards, which is again kind of the whole point of our gimmick. And we did not find any of our skirmishers. So our entire deck is based on a unit that gets stronger every time you resurrect it, and we did not find him. So, we're going to for sure pick him as one of our 2 cards to discard, because he goes into play right away. And we're probably going to pick the Demetrium Bomb.
That's it. Good.
So, there's a weather effect. As you can see, set everything to 1, except these guys are already at 1. But my guys dropped. Now, there's a couple of different things that we can do. We're still technically winning, so if we were to pass the round, he would then have to play another card to take the round, and we would go up technically by 1 in card advantage. Now that's one of the clutch things about this game, is that you have to know when it's okay to forfeit a round, because you only have to win 2. And a lot of the strategy comes from getting your opponent to overcommit to win one of the rounds, so that you go up in advantage enough to win the later rounds or future rounds. And we're actually going to try to set this up where we forfeit this first one to win in the later rounds, but we don't want to do it quite yet. And the reason for that is that we have Ciri. So Ciri returns to our hand if we lose the round. And we're going to play her.
Yield and save me some time.
And if they play another card, which they did, then we are going to pass the round. And the reason for that is he would still have to play one more card to take the round, so we would be up 7-6 and she'll return to our hand, so we'll actually be up 8-6. And that'll set us up pretty well for winning rounds 2 and 3. So, again, as you can see, the only real thing that matters in terms of like the rows is how things are affecting the rows in terms of weather and positioning and things like that. So again, we're going to go ahead and pass. So he played a card to take the round. So we lose, but again, it's actually by design. So his monster ability triggers, he got to keep one of the 1/1s. That was really good for us. Look at me saying 1/1. I'm so used to games where, you know, they have health and attack. One of the 1 strength cards. So that's what he got to keep.
We enter the fray!
And then he also plays another gold card, which killed his. So, we're going to lead off with playing this. This was the guy we were trying to find last round. He's kind of what the entire deck is built around. We're looking to play him and resurrect him as often as possible. We're going to play him to buff him. Now, he buffs base strength, and that's important because base strength is what your cards get reset to, even if they have gone to the graveyard. Whereas if they're buffed, they'll be highlighted in green, and those buffs can be taken away. Now, we're also going to go ahead and play Siri. At this point, because we've already lost 1 round, we can no longer get the benefit of her by losing another, so we're just going to have to fight hard for this round.
Any last words?
Similarly, we're going to play Geralt. We're going to use our leader, who puts 2 guys onto the board. We're going to use our Manticore Venom on this. So Manticore removes 4 strength, but it removes it from all copies, and since he has 2 of them, this technically removes 8. Which is nice. That technically gives us the lead at this point. He's played a second Fog. He's down to 1 card. We're going to resurrect a unit.
Freyr is patient, but she brooks no insult.
I guess we'll just pick one of these. Mostly because I want to try to get them to play this last card. And they do, so that we can see what it is. Alright, so this one says, after 2 turns, remove all non-golden units in your graveyard from the game and gain 1 strength for each. So, what we are going to do is, we're going to just pass the round now. We're up 3 cards to 0, again, because we forfeited that first one, we gave ourselves massive advantage. And, by doing this now, we pass, he has 0 cards, so they have to pass, and then this will never trigger. So this is a very big victory for us. So it's important to note that when you pass, that just means that you're choosing to not play any more cards for that round. The opponent doesn't then have to, you know, play a card and then pass. Like, if they want, they can choose to play like 5 more cards. Now, it often doesn't benefit them to do so, but it is allowed. So we're gonna start by playing this. He plays a giant toad, and then we're gonna get the victory because now we can basically get our combo off. So again, our deck is based around resurrection, so we play her, which allows us to resurrect our priestess. The priestess then allows us to resurrect him, and when he gets resurrected, he gains 4 strength. So we've now shot up a lot. They're out of cards they have to pass. Just for giggles here, instead of just passing, which would win us the game, we're also going to do some more resurrecting. And we're going to pick him because he goes into the front row. And then to showcase why rows matter, again, we're going to Commander's Horn. So now you'll see these are green because it's not base strength, but we doubled the strength of everything and we massively won the round. So this is our victory screen. As you can see, we forfeited the first round on purpose to gain card advantage, which set us up well for the second round and then ultimately the third round as well. A lot of that has to do with the fact that our faction ability also lets our units get stronger in the later rounds, so that's a strategy that we are looking for. And that is kind of Gwent in a nutshell. Again, those are just real basics. Obviously, all of the different cards and combinations are you know, leading to different decks and different archetypes. I'm having a lot of fun playing it. As I said before, you may have noticed there were not very many random effects at all. In fact, I think in our games, the only one that you saw was just the monster faction ability, where it randomly selects which unit stays on the board. Otherwise, the cards, when you play them, just do what they do, which is a refreshing turn of events for Gwent. So, hopefully you enjoyed the quick demo. Hopefully you pick the game up and give it a try. As of right now, it's in closed beta, but they're sending keys out pretty frequently. If you sign up for the closed beta, you can expect to get one, hopefully pretty soon. If you don't have one, you could maybe ask around. I know I myself have a couple of extras right now, and I've been, strongly encouraging people to try the game, because I think that as of right now, for a closed beta, it's been pretty polished. I haven't seen very many bugs. The art looks pretty good. The premium cards that they do have finished look fantastic, and they're adding new features all the time. The last patch they had, for example, was a big patch. They balanced over 100 cards, so there was a well of changes, right, that went pretty deep. I'm still actually even adjusting to the last patch, and they've already said on their developer streams, for example, that they are adding things like leaderboards, and in their developer stream they showed off an example leaderboard that included like global rankings, so you can see where you are in relation to other players in the world, other players on your continent, on your friends list. They showed off, more premium card art that they were adding. They showed off a whole host of things that are coming. So I'm really enjoying it. The game's got a lot of good features coming. The game is pretty well polished in its current state, and I highly suggest that you pick it up, especially if you're looking for a card game that does not revolve around lots of RNG or random effects. So, as always, thanks for watching. If you liked this and you want to see more of it, let me know in the comments, because I would be happy to produce more Gwent content. I have been streaming it periodically on stream as well, just to kind of get a feel for the game, so it may end up becoming a little bit more of a mainstay of the channel. Obviously I'm still going to be doing Legends because I love the game and that's a focus, but I'm really digging this too, so yeah, thanks for watching, and hopefully this left an impression on you.